security in Nigeria under the new service chiefs. In about 10 days, they would have spent some 7 months in office. Have there been significant improvements, in your opinion, as regards the nation's security since their appointment in June last year?
Well, I think they have been doing pretty well. The president, as you are quite aware, last Friday, when he was decorating the Guards Brigade commander and the commander of the Presidential Air Fleet, as well as his security officer that were promoted to various next ranks, he echoed the voice of what is happening in the sense that they have been doing very well. However, just like everything else, there is still room for improvement, and that call for renewed effort and vigor on the part of security chiefs and intelligence chiefs also to redouble their effort, because the average Nigerian, all he or she is interested in is the result practically on the ground. And you have had instances of some security challenges here and there. Take, for instance, the unfortunate incident in Plateau and quite recently in some parts of the country. So they have been doing pretty well, but I think there is need for more improvement in terms of what they are doing. And some of the issues, actually, they are far beyond the security chiefs, and that is where the government comes into play, the whole society approach about security challenges.
And we're going to talk about that in detail shortly. Also joining this conversation is the MD Beacon Consulting Limited, Dr. Kabir Adamu. Dr. Adamu, thank you for joining us. The president did say there's been good progress, according to him, in eliminating certain threats in some quarters. But according to him, the avoidable errors, as witnessed recently in Kaduna, are unacceptable and cannot be repeated. You recall what happened last year. It's perhaps the fourth airstrike, resulting in significant civilian fatalities since 2017. And it's again raised serious questions about the professionalism and competence of the Nigerian security architecture. Is it clear what the problem is in that regard?
Yes. Let me start by putting into context the president's statement using the data that we combine. When we looked at what happened in 2022 and compared it with 2023, we saw a decline across all the various components of variables that we monitor. So as an example, fatalities, which are the number of persons that were killed, we saw a near 30% decline in that regard. When we also looked at abduction, we saw a similar decline. However, if you go deeper into the figures, unfortunately, there were certain trends that emerged that we would really call on Mr. President and his security sector team to look closely at. So as an example, we saw a dip starting from immediately after the elections, from around May up until July. But by August, September, that dip was changing. By September, we saw almost a 90% increase in the number of fatalities and concurrent abductions. We also saw a change in the elements that were contributing to those fatalities. Now, this is a public platform, so I'm mindful about the kind of details I would reveal. But my point is, this type of intelligence and analysis of trends reveals a lot, and I would strongly urge the president's team to also embrace a similar data gathering and data analysis component. It will really say a lot in terms of whether we're making progress. But with regards to your question, specifically discussing some of the mishaps, collateral damage that occurred in 2023, in particular that of Tudunbiri, where several, over 100 Nigerians were killed in that instance, and the president's directive that steps should be taken to ensure non-reoccurrence. I'm aware that a committee has been set up by the defense headquarters. It's also possible that the federal government is considering setting up a committee. And I think that's the way to go. We can't wish these things away. There are institutional and structural challenges that allow these things to happen. So perhaps a committee that would look at the reports that have been, because there were several mishaps in the past. And as far as I know, committees were set up, either administrative or in some instances judicial. But we are not aware that the reports of those committees have been implemented. So I think it's really appropriate for the president to set up one to look at the incident and then, of course, attempt to harmonize the reports of previous occurrences. That's the only way we can prevent a reoccurrence. But the organizations themselves, the Army as an example, the Air Force, would need to work closely together. I think the Air Force has more experience in the use of air assets, especially unmanned aerial air assets. So the Army can learn a lot from them in that regard.
We're counting on that, Dr. Adamo. Let me bring in the Brigadier General. In October of 2022, former Chief of Air Staff, Oladayo Amao, did say that a committee had been established to compile all allegations of accidental airstrikes on civilians in recent years for investigation. And we've heard that time and time again. Is there proof something significant is being done to fix this problem?
I think there's a lot is being done, and just like Kabir has just said, I think the most important thing is to make sure that this kind of mishap has not happened again. And earlier on, you have talked about professionalism of the armed forces, particularly, because in view of the recent happenings, they are very, very professional. But accidents do occur. But let it just be those kind of things that are normal in a situation that we have found ourselves. But no matter what, so any life lost, in that circumstances is not acceptable. And I think they are doing the best they could do to ensure that this kind of thing has not happened. Remember, we have had instances like that. But I think the most important thing is issue of coordination and collaboration among the security architecture. For instance, sharing of intelligence, sharing of information on the basis of, experience and assets available to each of the services or the security agencies as it will be. And of course, most importantly, coordinating those activities, operational activities of the security agencies so that we can not have the occurrence, we will not have the occurrence of such instances. But most importantly also is to collaborate with the other people on the ground to ensure that the information being passed is accurate and also timely. I think this is the most important thing. But of course, I'm not wishing away the importance of the fact that, people who that are found deliberately doing some kind of thing that should not be punished. And that is the essence of the compilation, what the former Chief of Air Staff has said. But I know as well, when in the Army that I knew, most instances when there were occurrences like that, either at individual or even at formation level, people are found culpable, and that is why in the theater, I think they have a standing court-martial. People that are involved are dealt with decisively, to the point that I could remember some of them have been given life sentences, some were even sentenced to death. So basically a lot is being done. So it is not just a question of wishing it away, but you should understand also there are two tiers of judicial, so to speak, or legal instrument, in as far as much the armed forces are concerned. You have the military justice system, and of course you have the, civil justice system that is applicable to every Nigerian. And I think the military justice system is up and dealing with such things.
Indeed. Very, very crucial, the points you have raised, Brigadier General, but some have also said it's not enough for the military to own up to the Kaduna killings, for instance. They say the military owes Nigerians an explanation as to what exactly happened. So investigate, compensate, but also be accountable. What do you make of the need for the outcome of this investigation to be declassified?
Well, I think because the security challenges are fluid and ongoing, and declassification, I think, to a large extent is time-bound, and the operations are ongoing. If you say you are going to declassify some of the information, definitely it might jeopardize ongoing or future operation in respect of, you know, the security challenges. But by and large, accountability, even in warfare, is part of the principles of war, especially in internal security. So it is important to be accountable to all this, you know, the inaction or actions, as the case may be. And I think the defense headquarters, and I think Army headquarters have taken it upon themselves to inquire about the circumstances that brought about this unfortunate incident at Tudumbiri in Kaduna State late last year. And a lot is being done. And the issue of compensation, I think it goes beyond the army, in fact, beyond the military. And because the military did not deploy themselves, then that is where the government, and I am so sure the federal government and the Kaduna State government, they are working hand in glove. Take, for instance, I think there's some of the amenities that are lacking. Take, for instance, I think construction of access road, and the issue of compensation is being. But I think the most important thing is to ensure that those who have been injured are given adequate care, and of course to ensure that such unfortunate incident does not reoccur again. I think that's the most important thing, and I think remedial actions are being taken to ensure, and that is why I talked about collaboration and coordination earlier on. And just lost, like Dr. Kabiru has said, there is so much to say, but of course in view of the prevailing circumstances, some of these things you just have to leave them. But most importantly, I think a lot is being done to coordinate the activities of the security forces, not just the armed forces, to ensure that the security challenges are being dealt with collectively.
All right. Dr. Adamu, there are concerns about what some say is a doctrinal deficit in fighting banditry from the air, you know, with either drones or combat aircraft, that even in advanced societies, targeting can be imprecise. How often should this be deployed, you know, back at home when we fight criminality of this nature?
No, definitely. Asymmetric warfare is one of the most difficult warfares to execute. Similarly, terrorism, it's a very difficult warfare to execute for the simple reason that in the case of some of the elements that are participating in the banditry, campaign, as it were, and then of course the terrorist campaign, they are embedded within civil society. It's not a conventional warfare where you have the enemy on one side and then you have your fighting forces on the other side. In this instance, they are embedded within the civil populace, and so if you're not careful, and sadly this is what we've not done very well in Nigeria, we have not been able to carry the people along in both the anti-terrorism war campaign as well as the anti-banditry campaign that we're giving. And anyone who is in doubt just needs to pick up the paper and or even just go to your search engine or online and search for informants. And what you would find would be shocking. You are living witness to the fact that even at the height of some of the state level measures that were implemented in the northern part of the country to support the anti-banditry campaign, when certain state governments banned the use of GSM communication for some period, closed down markets, and took other, what I would call extraordinary measures. The law enforcement agencies arrested women who had put petroleum in cellophane bags and were transporting them to these bandits, clearly showing that these bandits have found a way to involve the local populace in supporting their operations. So in summary, there are industries that have emerged that are supporting the banditry activities, unfortunately, in the northern states. And why I brought this up is if we're using military assets that have the capacity for mass casualty in such warfare, then the likelihood is that civilians will be affected, just like we saw in Kaduna. We've seen it in Zamfara, in Yobe, and in Borno State. And where that happens, it would affect the ability of the government to win the hearts and minds of the people. Now, the challenge with this is that there is no anti-terrorism campaign, no anti-banditry campaign that can be won if you don't carry the people along. So this conversation is crucial, it's absolutely important. The military, the other security agencies who are fighting these campaigns would have to ensure that wherever, for instance, they are deploying assets, it is in a situation where there will be minimal casualty on the side of ordinary civilians.
Apparently, Nigerians are looking forward to that. Hopefully, we won't be hearing of such mistakes anytime soon. Brigadier General, another major issue last year, is the killings in Plateau, which took another greater dimension late last year with some 200 people killed on Christmas Eve in an attack on about 28 communities in Mango, Bokos, and Barikin Ladi. These attacks, according to community sources, we understand, were carried out even when a letter that was dated 15th November was sent to those communities by the perpetrators of this evil act. When the president says his pursuit of $1 trillion economy is in jeopardy with insecurity, Plateau is no doubt a good example. Why do you think the challenge on the Plateau has persisted for so long, even with the change in the service chiefs?
Well, it is quite sad and quite unfortunate that we have lost so much precious life on Christmas Eve on the Plateau based on the criminal acts of some, criminally minded people. But by and large, the truth is that for quite some time, Plateau State has been the epicenter of all these security challenges. And I think the missing link, Kabiru has earlier talked about it, about involvement of the people. And earlier on, I have talked about, the whole society approach to security challenges. And let us not deceive ourselves. Even if you bring in 1 million policemen or 1 million soldiers, they cannot bring about peace on the Plateau except the people themselves realize the need for peaceful coexistence. Therefore, whatever measures you are going to put in place, it must be people-centric. But again, it cannot be people-centric unless you get the buy-in of the people. So many people have been aggrieved on the Plateau. So kinetic measures alone cannot solve the problem. We have had the instances of Operation Safe Haven had been there for over a decade now. Even though they have recorded tremendous progress in terms of, mitigating some of these challenges, but there are underlying factors that we have to address. Take, for instance, security challenges are always predicated on the political, social, and economic structure of the country. To what extent the whole component of the Plateau have been integrated into the political, social, and economic well-being of the Plateau State, or on the Plateau, as it were, or, other parts of the country. So these are the important things that we have to look at. And that is why the conflict on the Plateau has been protracted, not only on the Plateau, and many other parts of the country. So the issue of justice has to come into play. Then, most importantly, the perpetrators of this crime have to be fully investigated and, made to face the full wrath of the law. And I'm so happy that so far the security agencies have made arrests, and we should not in any way, politicizing security issues. Take, for instance, we have instances because people who are suspected to have committed this heinous crime, women troop out on the street to start protesting against it, just like when Alkali, Major General Alkali of blessed memory, was also killed. I think we should look at security issues dispassionately, devoid of sentiments. A criminal is a criminal regardless of the level of relationship between you and him. And unless we look at it that way, we'll continue to have the problem that we have on the Plateau. And this, again, the government has to be there for each and every one of them. Like I said earlier on, a lot of people are aggrieved on the Plateau. You need to talk to the people. Everybody seems to be marginalized. And I think now it's time that people should be given greater sense of belonging, to be made to understand that there is need to live in peace, there is need to have mutual coexistence among the components. And I am so happy that both Muslim and Christian communities, they have trooped to the government house to say that they want to live in peace. And I think there is need for the government to listen to them, and there should be constructive engagement, especially with the community leaders on the plateau, religious leaders and opinion leaders, and we look at security issues dispassionately, devoid of ethnicism and religious consideration. And I think we will be on the right pedestal towards having a lasting peace on the plateau. Take, for instance, just even the military some time back, I think set up a 57-man committee or thereabout, headed by a retired justice who went through the nooks and crannies of the plateau. They have, condensed or gotten information on the way forward. To what extent? And there had been so many, commission of inquiries or judicial inquiries on the plateau crisis. What happened to the recommendations that have been made? What happened to them? And I think it's about time to dust them and look at them, and of course update them to see to what extent we can have a lasting peace. And definitely the government has to work hand in gloves with the people and has to work with all the components of Nigerian society, the federal, the state, and the local government system, as well as leaders, including the youth. You have to bring them together and make sure that you constructively engage them. And I think we will have peace on the plateau doing that. And of course, there should be deterrent for whoever commits such atrocities. He should be made to pay the full wrath of the law. And I will give you an example. I think one of the, is it an Ardo in Panyang was killed. When he was killed, when the chief of army staff gave marching order, lo and behold, the perpetrators, eloped as far as Lagos, in Lagos State. They were arrested and they were brought back. So if you can give such directive and ensure that such perpetrators are apprehended and allow the criminal justice system to take its course, and I think we will have peace on the plateau.
Dr. Adamo, the Brigadier General has talked about the need for justice in the mix of all of this. If people keep perpetrating such evil and they're not brought to book, it's hard to, explain that to the locals, particularly when they know who these individuals are. And in all fairness to the state governor, I've had a couple of conversations with him. We've saw quite a number of, effort is made in the area of non-kinetic move, bringing the leaders of these communities together, signing some peace deal. But that doesn't seem to be enough. But I want to bring to your remembrance, at some point at the height of the mango crisis in Plateau mid-last year, the local women staged a protest, and they were demanding the withdrawal of troops, which was quite strange, to the development in that part of the country. How do you think the military can boost that form of people's confidence in their operations and capacity to resolve their problems?
So it's extremely difficult, and I agree almost 100% with the sentiments of Brigadier General Pukashika. One of the points I would like to add is the influence of politicians, both positive and negative. Part of why we're seeing a resurgence of conflict or violence in Plateau State, in my honest opinion, is the aftermath of the February and March elections, both the presidential and then the governorship, as well as the other, level elections. Sadly, and I say this with all sense of responsibility, the judicial processes that followed the elections, just like the elections itself, especially the campaigns before the elections, we saw a lot of negative mobilization using religion, using ethnicity, and in some instances, using other sentiments that I wouldn't even want to mention in a public space. Now, immediately after the appeal court ruling, and we all know what happened, the tribunal first, and then, of course, the appeal court, we saw a resurgence of that type of negative mobilization. Now we're at the stage where the Supreme Court is about to rule. And I can tell you as a risk management specialist, either way the Supreme Court rules, there would be consequences on the plateau. And this is the premise that I would urge the federal government to approach the plateau from. The society has been fractured by political sentiments. There seemed to be this, desire, as it were, in the different ethnic groups that make up the Plateau, that grouping themselves and using their numbers can help influence the outcome of political decisions. Now, with that protest that you mentioned by women, if you go to the killing of the general that Brigadier General Kukashika mentioned, when the military attempted to excavate a pool where the corpse of the general was mentioned, it was the same women that were used to prevent the military. 2 weeks ago, there about a few days ago, women also were mobilized to target a traditional ruler. And in fact, I touched a part of his palace. So the point I'm trying to make is that there is this level of distrust between the people and their leaders, transcending both traditional and sometimes religious and then ethnic leaders that do not agree to certain political decisions, either at the subnational or sometimes even at the local government level. Indeed. But in all of this, I think in all of this, the major challenge with all sense of responsibility is that we haven't seen a very good structure for managing security by the various state governments. As an example, in spite of all the challenges in Plateau State at the moment, and I think, correct me if I'm wrong, I doubt if the state has a commissioner of security or internal security like we have in other states of the federation. Till date, the state does not have a trust fund for managing security. Neither has it appointed a special advisor on security. Now, why is this important? States that have done this have been able to provide a subnational structure for supporting the federal structure in managing security. Now, what this does is that the elements of M&E, monitoring and evaluation, that is required in every good security structure is supported by the state-level security structure. So I think the governor, we don't know who will be the governor after the Supreme Court. If it turns out to be the current one, he needs to look closely at that. If not, then whoever it is needs to look closely at this.
Indeed. Very, very interesting, particularly when you talk about trust fund and the need to have, a special advisor in that regard and a commissioner for security. We're going to take a short break now. There's a lot to say in such a short time. Brigadier General Dr. Adamo, please stand by. We'll be back with you shortly. Stay with us, everyone.
Every week, Green Angle, in partnership with Wild Aid, will bring you a documentary series on environmental issues affecting Nigeria's amazing biodiversity, from climate change, air pollution, and wildlife conservation. We will be traveling across Nigeria to give you on-the-ground report of the issues affecting our environment. It airs every Saturday at 4:30 p.m. only on TVC News.
Politics is defined as getting what, where, when, and how. But in the mix, many things come to play to shape the political fortune of any country.
Honorable Minister, that's how you misinform the public.
From the political actors to the electorate, campaign to voting, from debates to policy decisions, big events happen to engage us in constant conversation.
That's what we're looking for. Not some people who are talking about ethnicity. No.
Who is on your mind?
Don't worry.
Join me every day on Politics Tonight, where we dissect issues that shape our political destiny. Politics Tonight, weekdays on TVC News.
Thanks for joining us, everyone. Our conversation today bothers around security in Nigeria, following the charge given by Mr. President to the service chiefs to ramp up, their security efforts in order to be able to help his administration's effort in building the economy. My guests are the former Director, Army Public Relations, Strategic Communications Expert, Brigadier General Sani Usman, retired, live for us in our Abuja studio, and Dr. Kabir Adamu, MD, Beacon Consulting Limited. Gentlemen, thank you so much for staying the course of the program. Brigadier General, I don't know if you've been seeing videos online of some junior soldiers hurling abuses on the Lagos State governor over the arrest of a colleague of theirs for riding against traffic. The Chief of Army Staff just recently mentioned that one of them has been apprehended. But what do you make of this development? A situation where soldiers vent their anger on social media, calling out elected officials with little or no regard.
I've seen such videos, and quite a number of people have approached me, and particularly very senior retired officers, including serving one. And my answer to them is that two wrongs do not make a right. It was quite unfortunate, the incidents that involve the alleged soldier and, of course, the Lagos State government, governor, and, of course, what follows after the two videos. One, thankfully, the Chief of Army Staff, while on tour of 82 Division yesterday, alluded to the fact that, which we all know, that no soldier, regardless of the provocation that will extend or utter such kind of derogatory words to constituted authority. And by constituted authority, the governor represents constituted authority. In fact, even if it is among the private soldiers themselves, there is always a seniority. And that is why in the military you don't hear plural for, the prefix sir. Usually, even if there are 100 or million of them, usually the most junior, when he is greeted, he will either say good morning, sir, good afternoon, sir, or good evening, sir, not sirs. That means there is always respect for authority and leadership. So it was unmilitary for anybody to have done what he did by first disobeying traffic rules, by taking one way, even if he's a passenger, then secondly, coming out to vent his anger. But I think in respect of the other video, you should know that definitely, certainly, it was not a serving or retired military personnel, because a lot of things, first the weddings, the continence, and of course the dressing. No matter, even if you left the military 100 years ago, definitely you know how to dress better, and you know the current uniform that you should wear, and so on and so forth. And that is where the problem lies. People take undue advantage of the security situation in this country to do a lot of things. And that is why I have had instances where the police were even warning the skip makers, getting military accoutrements and police to commit a lot of things, sarcastic way of, expressing certain things. By and large, it is unacceptable for any soldier to denigrate constituted authority, and it's a military, and it goes contrary. And I've seen, even if you look at some of the legal framework, particularly the Armed Forces Act, particularly Section 50, is quite explicit about the conduct. If the conduct, it is not even physically, even verbally, even, so many things. And I'm so happy that the person involved has been apprehended. And I think it's the thing is that is issue of command responsibility. I don't know what is happening. In those days, each platoon commander has, a fair idea about his soldiers. Take, for instance, a platoon commander has a platoon commander notebook. He can tell you offhand where his soldiers come from, their educational qualifications, their religions. So if any one of them commit any offense, he knows that such person is capable of doing that or not. And by and large, of course, there are internal mechanisms that you monitor the conduct of the soldiers, that they hardly go to anywhere, without the consent of the authority. And that is why you have this award procedure, absent without leave. And more so, now that whoever you are, as an officer, take for instance, you cannot go beyond 50 square kilometers out of your station without the express permission of the authority. So these are some of the value systems that actually we need to re-emphasize, continuous education of these soldiers and officers, so that they will understand they have grievous responsibility bestowed upon them by the virtue of the fact that they have elected to serve in that capacity. So they are not just ordinary people. And of course, again, those in a position of authority, respect is reciprocal. If there are issues, just like so many other people said, you don't even fight along the street. All you have to do is a phone call or a directive, You know, so you don't exchange words. We are so happy and lucky that it has not extended to physical, exchanges beyond what happened. So I think there is also a call on the part of those in a position of authority. If they see or they hear such things, they should report to the appropriate quarters. And also, for instance, the Nigerian Army has this toll-free call center, that 193, wherever it is. All you have to do is to make a phone call. That is, even if you don't have access to the Chief of Army Staff or the Provost Marshal or the Chief of Military Intelligence or any one of their equivalents in the services or even the police. You know, the police have quite a number of such things. So basically, those in the position of authority also, they need to understand that there is also grievous responsibility in terms of their public conduct, so much as those in security agencies too. They should understand they are professional and the act of indiscipline is not part of their doctrine.
Right. Dr. Adamu, let me hear your thoughts on this, because when you watch these videos and then you see videos where some soldiers, harass civilians, particularly when you wear the camouflage and they ask you to put them off and flog you in public, you begin to wonder if they are trained to think they are above civilians. Because how do you protect a person you have no regard for?
Exactly. And this is the crux of the matter. Security sector governance and security sector reform. We unfortunately had a very long spell of military rule. And during that period, I think the military assumed certain responsibilities that unfortunately we are still living with the consequences at the moment. So there is a need to pursue security sector reform and to pursue security sector governance. Because of the remit of this discussion, I can't go into the details of what these two things mean. But in essence, a good and efficient security sector reform and security sector governance reform and program would allow the military to see itself as quote unquote subservient to civilian administration and governance. At the moment, the National Assembly, and I say this with all sense of responsibility, during the 9th Assembly, I was a special advisor to the Senate President on intelligence and security. And I know that our parliament at the moment is not too comfortable in citing the security sector, in particular the military. There are still very deep concerns, and that's not good for our democracy. We should reach a stage where the civilian administration, the government, both in the executive arm and in the legislative arm, should have full and absolute confidence and control over their ability to supervise both the elements of the military. And that's one element of my response. The other element are issues that are institutional. Grievances should be collected and they should be addressed. Now, whether those grievances are real or they are perceived, if you listen to the complaints or the outburst on the social media by these renegade military persons, whether they are real or fake, like Brigadier General mentioned, I think the military should look inwards and ask itself, what are the avenues that it has provided for addressing grievances? Because when you don't provide internal avenues for addressing grievances, the consequence of that is that those grievances will become public, sadly. So that's number one. I think there's a need for an improvement in that area. I know because of the very institutionalized nature of the military, it's sometimes difficult for subordinates to complain about their superiors. But if we're going to reduce and prevent it, then we have to provide the platform. Now, the third component of this is the need, for instance, to ensure appropriate discipline is meted out to these individuals. Now, if the serving military officer has been arrested, what of the one who, like the general is claiming, is not a real military personnel? He probably just donned uniforms and then decided to do what he did. Now, if the capacity and capability that we have in the cyberspace is effective, we should have been able to identify who it is. that person should have been arrested, and that person should have been subjected to our criminal justice system.
Interesting, particularly when you consider that the military over the years have tried to, approach the civilian population. We've seen their outreach in the area of, medical, welfare for their host communities and things like that. They try to get the people on their side, but all of these isolated, experiences and situations seem to tell the people a different message, particularly when you have a confrontation with a soldier on the street. Some would say perhaps the issue is their engagement with the populace, which is not supposed to be their primary responsibility. We are told is the sovereignty of the nation. Do you think perhaps we are engaging them too much for domestic interventions?
No, definitely. We are engaging the military too much for internal security matters. I've been in circumstances where even governors, if you attempt to redeploy the military from their states, the next thing they are at the villa discussing with the president to say, please, we don't want that, allow the military to remain. I don't think there's any state in the country at the moment that does not have one or the other form of military operation going on. Mm-hmm. In the case of the Plateau, like the Brigadier General mentioned, we have Operation Safe Haven that has been ongoing for 14 years now. Mm-hmm. And the challenge is this. Earlier on, I spoke about security sector governance. It would be interesting really to ask anyone in the parliament whether he knows what the mandate of Operation Safe Haven. And then secondly, whether every year when they approve the budget for the military and there is a provision for Operation Safe Haven, whether they actually look into that, because it was meant to be a stopgap operation, and stopgap operation running for 14 years is not acceptable. So those are the elements of security sector reform and governance that I hope to see, where we can ask the military specific questions. If you are running an operation, how long is that operation going to last? What is the mandate of that operation? What KPIs you develop that will allow the civilian component to measure your performance in that regard?
Indeed, Dr. Adamu, please permit me to jump in. Apologies. Gentlemen, let's just try to give this conversation some gender balance and get the corruption angle to it as well. We're joined on the show this morning to join this conversation very quickly. Ayomide Macaulay, who's an entrepreneur and investment manager. She joins us live from our Abuja studio. Thank you so much for joining us. A lot have been said about security before you came. We are spending perhaps the largest chunk of the 2024 budget on security at over 3 trillion naira. What are your concerns? What do you think has been the challenge as to having the money spent for the things they are earmarked for?
I'm a woman, and I'm a market woman essentially. Anything that the federal government needs to do to ensure that we have safety and security and our businesses and our children are able to thrive successfully in Nigeria, I think that they need to get it done. If they need to invest in technology, if they need to invest in research, they should go ahead and do what they need to do. I don't have any problem with the budget. If they need to double the budget, they should do what they need to do. But my people need to be sleeping and waking up in peace. We need to be able to go to the markets, go to the farms, conduct our businesses, enjoy our lives. It's very important that we start getting some form of normalcy. Nigerians are a peaceful people. We don't like stress. What we want to do is work hard, take care of our children, and enjoy our lives. And so if they need to double their budget, if they need to invest in things, invest in more resources, I say go ahead. Just make sure that all Nigerians, top to bottom, are able to survive, do what they need to do, thrive, enjoy, and build wealth for ourselves and for our families.
Now, it is exactly the point that Nigerians are concerned about, how these funds have been disbursed. I'm sure you're following the Dr. Betta Edu case as to, when monies are earmarked for a thing and then they are sent to personal account. For instance, the memo that was leaked as to having such amount of money, which is supposed to benefit some Nigerians, being sent to, the accountant overseeing that project. When you take that particular issue as a case study, do you think Nigerians are not being well educated enough, or it is the same situation, the same narrative of how corrupt officials are, siphoning our commonwealth?
I think that the better situation is very unfortunate because we have been clamoring for positions, young people. I think I'm 3 years older than her. We've been clamoring that, I think I'm younger at heart, so I can say I'm still young. I think that young people have been clamoring for positions in government, number one. And we women in particular, we've been very feisty into saying that we want these positions. What happened to better is a technicality issue. I understand where Nigerians are coming from, but it's a technical issue. It was a function of, did you follow the law or did you follow I'm sorry, my English. Did you follow the regulation that has been used in the past, right? And with better situation, when you start to think about, she was trying to meet deadlines, youthful exuberance. She wanted to ensure that, look, subsidy is gone, prices of everything is going up, everybody's tired, everybody's hungry, everybody's under pressure. I think that she might have decided, okay, from outside looking in, she wanted to go with the regulation rather than go with the law. But the same regulation that we are castigating her on is the same regulation that has been used in the past. So I'm happy that this is happening. I think it's a lesson learned that Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu wants you to follow the law. And not just Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, from what I've seen on social media, it seems even the Nigerians, even though they are saying, yes, we're in a crisis mode, but please follow the law. If there is even a regulation that was there before, do not follow that. Take your time out, do what you need to do, and follow the law. The lesson has been learned. But I think that we women have not had enough space at the federal level for us not to make a mistake. These things happen, and I think we should handle that with baby gloves. I think it was a function of regulation. And if you look at the memo, the money wasn't sent to her. Furthermore, I think when I saw the memo was sent to the project accountant. So why are we? I don't know. I think that we should look at this thing carefully and not be too harsh in our judgment. We don't have a lot of young people, and we don't have a lot of young women, and we don't have that experience at the federal level. So definitely mistakes would be made. So now we are knowing that both Asiwaju and the Federal Republic of Nigeria and its citizens, they do not want us to go the short route, do not be in a hurry, follow due diligence, follow the law rather than follow regulation.
I mean, they were talking about one of the youngest ministers on this cabinet, woman for that matter. I mean, there are a lot of gender issues raised here because the 3 people involved are all female. If you add the accountant general, maybe they will make 4. You know, but a document was just released this morning by Tracker talking about how 10 billion naira was disbursed to personal accounts for, you know, issues of this type. Do you think this is something that can be proven? Just a simple question as, do you think that Dr. Betta Edu can return as minister with all of these efforts to explain perhaps, you know, the legality of our decision or otherwise?
I think so. Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu and, of course, the entire system, they understand that young people are just learning the ropes. And let's be clear, I used to work in GTB. Before you start working, they put you on a 3-month training to tell you these are the regulations, these are the laws, this is everything. But when it's governance, you're thrown into the job immediately. You're learning on the job. It's not an excuse. But I think that when they see that that money did not go to her, from what we are seeing, might never know, but that money didn't go to her. It followed the same process that had been followed in the past. Like, I think you mentioned Tracker. I think I saw that on social media last night before I slept. It's not something that hadn't been done before. And it's also the opportunity for the National Assembly to say, okay, moving forward, even though this was the norm before, we are saying no to it. You must go by the law and go through every single stipulation that we have laid down for you in the executive. So we hope that it's a chance for improvement, to be very honest. And I think that she'll be given a second chance. I think once they see that the money didn't go to her, she was actually just in a hurry to please Nigerians, to ensure that they got the aid and the humanitarian assistance that they needed on time. It was a function of youthful, from what I'm seeing, it was a function of youthful exuberance.
All right, let's get back to Brigadier General, particularly when you consider the amount of money we have budgeted for security over the years, taking a large chunk even this year. Are you convinced that we are getting value for money? If you can answer that in just a minute, sir.
Well, getting the value for money in as far as the security agencies are concerned, yes. However, the issue of security is a collective responsibility, and I think we are getting it wrong. We have been hammering about, non-involvement of other components of Nigerian society. So the priority is wrong. First and foremost, I told you, the security challenges are predicated on three things: the political, the social, and the economic. To what extent have you integrated these three to the well-being of Nigerians so that they will not be involved in criminality? And of course, security agencies are up and doing to deal with the criminalities of the 21st century, particularly our policing system. So invariably, yes, but the long and short of it is that I think we have to focus more on being proactive than being reactive, because by establishment, all the security agencies are reactive. That means the government ought to be the proactive, in the sense that giving Nigerians a sense of belongings. Everybody knows there is hunger outside there. What are you doing about it? And it has corresponding effect on the security challenges in the country. So these are some of the issues that you should address. So beyond that, again, I think I have to talk about the security sector Dr. Kabir was talking about. I think we instead of building on what we have had, I know that the armed forces went through the transformation program for 15 years, from 2000 to 2015. It involved attitudinal change and what have you. But you cannot transform in isolation with the Nigerian society. And to what extent have we followed through, including, tangling with the doctrine of the security agencies, not just, the armed forces and the other components of Nigerian society. These are the issues that we should be addressing, not just, the physical aspect of it, budgeting for kinetic issues, when we know the security challenges are very dynamic and we need
I'm afraid that's our time. Brigadier General, with you, we always didn't have enough time to explore these issues. It's why we keep bringing you back again. Brigadier General Sani Usman, Strategic Communications Expert, former Director, Army Public Relations. Thank you so much for your thought on the program. Dr. Kabir Adamu is Managing Director of Beacon Consulting Limited. Dr. Adamu, thank you so much also for sharing your thoughts with us on the program this morning. Just before we go, Ayomide, there's a lot of backlash against the suspended minister. You talked about how young she is, how she's a woman. Where is this coming from? If she's that efficient, and excellent, one would think that she will be getting more than enough support. Or you think it's just the corruption narrative that's been endemic for many years in this part of the world?
I think you've said it. It's the corruption endemic that has been the narrative, and everybody, there's a level of distrust between the people and people in governance. So, of course, Nigerians are thinking to themselves that it is business as usual and she has done something wrong and she has been corrupt. But I think that once the investigations are done, we will see that, it was just a technicality issue, to be very honest. And I'm hoping that, they can be kind to us women in government. It's not easy. To be very honest, it's not easy. Justice for all of us women. We don't
I thought that the conversation has always been equality. What is good for the goose is good for the gander. Should we bring the feminine? Should there be any special favor?
I'm sorry, I'm on live TV, but am I going? Look. It's not. We barely have 35% on this matter. Okay, so the little 35 that we have, I'm hoping that they can see this as a training platform. Let's not forget that both APC, PDP, and LP and QQQ, everybody has men that they have trained and they have given second chances to. It will be good for us women to also get the platform to learn, make the mistakes, understand what the mistakes are, and learn from it without necessarily, writing us off. Let's not throw the baby with the bathwater. It makes us concerned as women that, if I join politics, am I at risk of eating government beans one day? If I make a mistake and not dot the I or cross my T's, it does scare us that we're not given the chance to, defend ourselves. So we want to see how the government plays it out, and hopefully she survives it and learns her lesson moving forward. But we'll see.
Ayomide Macaulay, entrepreneur and investment manager. Thank you for sharing your thoughts with us on the program this morning.
Thank you. Thank you.
And that's our show, everyone. Thanks for being a part of it. The conversation continues on X, formerly Twitter. Remember to use the hashtag this morning and tag me at Nifemi Oguntoye. See you again tomorrow.
Sometimes it's the story that calls. At other times, the people just want to be heard.
School, I need students, but I need teacher.
Can't continue like this.
Their voices re-echoing through time itself.
We haven't done anything. If the tide is high, everybody run for safety.
Their tears leave a sweet sour taste for all their demands. A familiar call beckoning for change. In our world, no one expects a disaster to happen. But when it does, we'll be there to x-ray all sides, from the east to the west, north and south. Community Forum will examine the oddities and challenges to economic development, as well as issues yearning for government intervention. Watch fresh episodes of Community Forum on Sundays by 9:30 p.m. only on TVC News.
Doubt and fear doesn't occur at the canvas, it shows in the canvas. It shows the conation of raw earthen material slabbed, stroked and molded at a pace provided by the doubt and fear. Every move way in the struggle of one to the other, merging the past to the present, brushstrokes of colors seen but not known. For when the wailing stops, the pieces settle down in abject beauty erected for a century of a century. Speaking, advocating, protesting as the arts are meant to be.
Every major news story is with many perspectives and layered with different levels of impact.
Hello. What time did this happen? We will be right there.
At TVC News, we follow the big and major news, gathering the facts, witnessing the outcome.
I am here live at the aftermath of the approval of the new national minimum wage.
We are TV Station of the Year, not just for breaking news, but for being first, fair and accurate. TVC News, first with breaking news.
Lagos is the most visited state in Africa as the 5th largest economy on the continent. Covering the state and its government is no mean feat, it's a busy beat. We go beyond the curtain of tapes to traveling far into the deep.
I want to thank the Lagos State government for the healthcare facility.
To bring stories that cut across all spectrums.
A greater Lagos shall be ours.
We tell you stories that define our collective well-being as Lagosians. I'm Adedoja Salamadini. I live in Lagos, inside Lagos.
Information is power, information is security, information is knowledge. On Labor Lens, we believe that working people around the world have real questions of their own. They want to know how the world of work operates, what it means to the employer of labor, how policies affect workers.
At TVC News, wherever the big news story is happening, we're geared up to break it. TVC News, first with
and welcome to TVC News this hour. We begin at the headquarters of the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, where the travel documents of suspended Minister of Humanitarian Affairs and Poverty Alleviation Plateau and former Minister Sadiya Umar Farouk have been seized. The anti-graft agency also seized the international passport of the suspended national coordinator of the National Social Investment Program Agency, Halima Shehu. Bete Edu also appeared before the FCC on Tuesday after her suspension. She was later released on bail, but is to report to the EFCC daily while the investigation is ongoing. The FCC also expanded its investigation into the alleged disbursement of 585 million naira by inviting the chief executive officers of Zenith, Providus, and Joyce Banks operated by the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs and Disaster Management. And after relevant questioning about the financial transactions of the ministry, they left the Commission's headquarters. TVC News Joke Adisa monitored developments at the EFCC on Tuesday.
In the last few weeks, the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs and Poverty Alleviation has been in the news for the wrong reason. The former minister, Sadiya Umar Farouk, is at the center of a 37.1 billion naira fraud. Also on 28 December 2023, a memo directing the Accountant General of the Federation, Toyin Madeni, to transfer 585 million naira into a private account belonging to one Bridget Oniyelu leaked. This was the beginning of a fresh trouble for Beta Edu as Minister of Humanitarian Affairs and Poverty Alleviation. On the 2nd of January, President Bola Tinubu sacked the Chief Executive Officer, National Social Investment Program Agency, Halima Shehu. The agency, which is responsible for managing critical programs like NPAR and conditional cash transfers, has also been under scrutiny for corruption allegations.
Oh, see the woman, see the woman. No. You can see the woman now. She's the one. She's the one.
The day after her suspension as minister, Beta Edu is at the headquarters of the EFCC, while the commission won't grant her crew access to the complex. In this amateur video, we captured her arrival at exactly 11 a.m. Our predecessor, Sadiya Umar Farouk, also returned to the commission after an administrative bail on Monday. In an exclusive interview with TVC News, spokesman of the commission, Dele Oyewale, confirms Beta Edu's presence.
We invited her to come around for some interrogation, and she came around 11 a.m. this morning. The former minister, she came in and she had a session with our interrogators, and she was admitted to administrative bail, and we allowed her to go. So, on the terms of the bail, she will be reporting, every day. Like today, she has come. She's with our interrogators.
He says investigation is on course.
When you are conducting investigations, you cannot give a time lag. It depends on what you are investigating, the dimension, the complexity or lack of it, and so many other grounds to cover. So you cannot, it's not a mathematical thing.
For more than 12 hours on Monday, the former minister, Sadiya Umar Farouk, answered questions about her alleged complicity by the commission, and both women seem to be cooperating with inquiries. The suspended Minister of Humanitarian Affairs and Poverty Alleviation, Beta Edu, and her predecessor, Ajia Sadiq Umar Farouk, will continue to be guests at the headquarters of the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission until investigations are concluded. Joke Adisa, TVC News, Abuja.
Now let's bring in our senior correspondent, Joke Adisa, who is on standby to give us the latest update from the EFCC headquarters. Thank you for joining us once again at this time. Well, the suspended minister has been released on bail. Can you talk to us about the grounds for this and the conditions that were provided to her?
Well, yesterday it was indeed a very long day for the suspended minister. It was released pretty much late into the night. That was about past 11 as we monitored the development, and so was asked to return this morning again. She has been here, and so she will continue to be here on a daily basis. That is part of the conditions for the administrative bail, as the EFCC puts it. But one thing that is also clear is that, as is customary with all EFCC investigations, they would not be able to leave the country pending the outcome of the investigation. So their international passports have been taken over, is in the custody of the EFCC, so they will not be able to leave the country. And so, the condition that they should also report daily to the EFCC also means that they may not even be able to leave the nation's capital as they would want to. So that is the update now as we speak. I had a chat with the spokesman of the commission some minutes ago, and he did say that their investigation is on course, and that is until they are done with all investigations before they will now know the next line of action. But he assured that the investigation is on course, and that they will continue to abide by laws and regulations guiding their operations, so that at the end of it all, justice will not only be seen to have been served, but also deemed to have been served on all accused persons.
All right, talking about the investigation and also, provision of evidences. Since we began following this case with keen interest, we've had several parties and interest group pointing fingers at the Minister of Interior, linking him to the scandal. But what may have raised concern is the fact that one minister was denied access to the villa while another was summoned to the villa. The difference is the disparity in this treatment. Do you have any feelers from the EFCC with regards to that?
Well, you know that EFCC will certainly not disclose details of their investigations. So that, of course, will be left to the EFCC. But what is clear from that scenario that you have painted is the fact that someone that has been suspended will not have access to Mr. President. And the other was also to clarify, so that as part of maybe Mr. President's investigation, to be sure, so as to know what next step to take as far as that matter is concerned. I know it's not alone for someone to raise accusations against somebody. It is also for this allegation to also be proven, so that at the end of it all, you will ensure that due process is followed, so that you do not give what is not right to another person. So, but basically, that is what it is about, the fact that, okay, you want to ensure that you give fair hearing to all parties. I think that was what happened, but you can be sure that EFCC will never, ever disclose the details of its investigations until maybe after the exercise is concluded and prosecution starts.
All right, Joke, we'll be back to you with for more update on that. TVC News senior correspondent Joke Adisa, live at the EFCC headquarters in Abuja. Thank you for joining us at this time. Meanwhile, President Bola Tinubu has directed the immediate slashing of expenses on all official travels by 60%. This directive was announced in a statement signed by the presidential spokesperson Ajurin Gelale, who says the development will affect the office of the president, the vice president, the first lady, ministers, and heads of agencies. With this directive, huge security detail that follows the president around on local trips will also be reduced and allow the security agencies in states that the president will visit to handle security arrangements for the president. Every minister is also limited to having just 4 members of staff on any foreign trip, while heads of agencies are limited to just 2.